Good morning, happy Thursday. Today is going to be a very short lesson. I'm just going to refresh our skills on the distributive property. You can see that I have written the rules for the multiplication of integers. It is also posted on your Google form for today where you can see the rules at the top of the form. But just to remind you, a positive times a positive is a positive. A negative times a negative is also a positive. A positive times a negative is a negative, and a negative times a positive is a negative. So these are the rules that you have to follow in all aspects of algebra, as we've talked about in class so many times. And these are also the rules for the distributive property. So I'm going to do 5 problems for you to give you a refresher on it. So the first one we're going to talk about is 3 times x plus 6. So remember when we did this, we said that anything sitting outside of parentheses means to multiply. So basically the distributive property is really multiplication. So on the board, remember I did 3 times x, 3x. 3 times 6, 18. And because everything is positive, you have all positive terms. Now, we also talked about that circle where you put the big X through, that it's not right. A lot of you and a lot of kids want to do 3 plus 6. You cannot do that because it is not correct. You have to do 3 times X and 3 times positive 6. Now, a lot of you always ask, do we have to solve it? No, we're just doing the distributive property. So that is the answer that they're looking for. So the next one we would look at would be 6 times x minus 2. So again, we're going to take 6 and multiply it times x, 6x. Then we're going to take 6 and multiply it times negative 2, negative 12. And again, you have to remember the rules of integers. And that's the answer, 6x minus 12. The next one, negative 7 times x plus 6. Same rules apply. Negative 7 times a positive x is a negative 7x. And a negative 7 times a positive 6 is a negative 42. So remember, you must do the distributive to both of the terms, negative 7 times x and negative 7 times positive 6. Now, I'm going to skip a little bit down the page and separate this out because this one will probably be one that would be missed. And if we were in class, I would say somebody raise your hand and tell me what the mistake would be. And it's going to be right here because we have double negatives. So we're still going to do negative 3 times x, negative 3x. A negative 3 times a positive x, negative 3x. Then we have a negative 3 times a negative 3. Now remember, you have to take the negative. So it's a negative 3 times a negative 3. Now if I go up to my rules, I remember that a negative times a negative is going to be a positive 9. You have to remember the rules. That's the most important thing in getting the correct answers. And the last one that I'm going to give you an example of is negative 8 times 2 plus 9x. Now, because I love my children, I wanted to show you this one because remember, not all of them always look the same. Because a lot of you would panic and go, Ms. White, what do I do? The x isn't in front. That's okay. We still do the same thing. We do negative 8 times positive 2, negative 16. And negative 8 times positive 9x, negative 72x. So even though the variable's in the back with the 9, it doesn't matter. it would still be negative 8 times 2, negative 16, negative 8 times positive 9, negative 72, include the x. Now remember, most of your algebra teachers would probably require you to write it this way because you always want to put your variables first. Now, if you needed to know more about the distributive property, you could also look on Khan Academy. They have videos on the distributive property as well. Most of you have the distributive property down pat, and I think that you'll do very well on this. If you have any problems, email me and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Have a great day, and I'll see you on Friday.